Hola, ¿cómo estás? Muy bien. Adios. I'm Ross Kemp. We'll start this video with this month's order from Insight. Can you see my address in that? Doesn't matter anyway, because you'll do nothing. Little Mix tickets, that's right, I'm going 31st of October. I love Little Mix. Let's get into the nitty gritty. This month's protein order, as you know, I'm a big fan of the Rule 1 whey blends. Cafe Mocha, probably my favourite, chocolate mint. I do tell a lie though, I had some of this last night, it's absolutely divine. It's red velvet, which tastes a bit like a sort of chocolatey strawberry crumble. But what I'm going to do today is make my protein pancakes from this, because when you're on a deficit and you play around with foods, if it doesn't pay off, then you're angry because you're using up carbohydrates on something that, do you understand where I'm coming from? What else we got in here? We got the new MVP flavour apple lemonade. Big fan of apple pre-workouts, big fan of lemonade pre-workouts. Combine the two, hopefully they are delightful. I've also gone for a fuck you up pre-workout. I haven't gone for a fuck you up pre-workout in quite a long time, and because I've Ibiza in a couple of weeks' time, it seems fitting to get a little fucked up. So we'll try this. Bring the chaos in sour gummy bear. I'll try this today and give a taste test review because nothing I've tried has topped Total War's sour gummy bear. That's like the top tier gold standard for sour gummy bear supplementation. The Carbo Max is for off seasons. That starts when we get back from Ibiza. And last on the menu is NutriBio's Alpha EAA. I know I'm offended as well. Triggered. It should be gender neutral EAA. 2019, get with the program, NutriBio. How dare you insinuate that this product is for alphas only? What's interesting though, is if you can see that they've added in some nootropic cognitive enhancement ingredients. So you've got alpha GPC in there. You've got some choline bitartrate, which is pretty weak. If you see choline bitartrate in pre-workouts or cognitive enhancements, because it doesn't cross that blood-brain barrier, not really effective. So, bit poor from them, but we've got hubazine in there, which we use in Utopia, De Novo's Utopia. So interesting to see cognitive enhancement ingredients in an intra. So we've seen them broaden into pump formulas now. Now they're filtering their way into intra workouts, which is great. I'm now going to make some protein pancakes from the red velvet, and fingers crossed they're good. That's annoying. Wasted calories, but I'd rather risk my calories so you don't make the same mistake. I would stick with Strom's custard cream for the pancakes. Not bad, but just not great. Folks, we've got 20 minutes. Will this top Total Wars sour gummy bear? Oh, it's close. It's close. It's got the sharpness, it just drops off a little bit. Oh, it's coming back. Doesn't top it, but I'm very impressed. Put me in a rave grave and bury me at the club. Hola, ¿qué tal? 7 days to go. This time next week I'll be packing. Very excited. Can't wait for my escapism. Training at Crayford a fair bit at the moment. It's a gym that I very much like, and you forget how good some of the pieces of equipment in there are. Hammer strength a bit hit and miss. For example, this pullover machine, I'd like you to be able to adjust the height between the bar at the top and the elbow pads, so you have to make do. They've got a seat belt which keeps you locked in, so fair enough, I suppose. In this particular training video, I wanted to talk about an educational topic, not just some nonsensical bullshit, and that topic is RIR, so reps in reserve versus training to failure. I feel like I'm in a position where I can comment on both quite confidently. I've trained RIR in the past, back when I was being coached by Luke, transferred to Callum, which was pretty much training to failure, and then this particular training block over the last 4 weeks I've been implementing an RIR type training modality based off just a little change really. I felt that things were going a little bit stagnant. I watched the Train by JP podcast with Revive Stronger and Dr. Mike Ishertel, which is fantastic. So essentially we have got this forever ongoing argument between individuals in the fitness industry. You've got the camp of training to failure, which is essentially taking the majority, if not all of your sets within your given training session to failure and managing fatigue and optimizing sleep as best as possible. And when we get the feedback markers like HRV, blood glucose, for example, generally how we feel in ourselves, as they start to tail off a little bit, at that point we look at implementing a deload. So essentially you're not scheduling in a deload, you're waiting to feel the effects of that build up of fatigue. At that point you then chuck in a deload, for example, versus reps in reserve, where you take a training block, 4 weeks for example. At the start of that training block you'd train in maybe like a 4 or 3 reps in reserve, and as you go through your meso cycle you get to your final week, which there you train to failure. And I think, to be completely honest with you, there's pros and cons of both. And if we could summarize it in short, I think the best scenario to put yourself in terms of training would be to include parts of both, really. I think training to failure every single session for a prolonged period of time can have its detrimental effects on fatigue and on joints, and you get this position where if you're training to failure for such a long time and you do burn out, that burnout period and that deload isn't just your usual 5 to 7 days, it can take a lot longer. I've seen people that train to failure and then they burn out, and it's not just a 5-day or a 7-day deload that's needed. It's longer than that. It's almost like a week of training followed by a deload to get them back in, because their central nervous system fatigue is completely fried. They're mentally gone, which is quite a noticeable part for me that I very much enjoyed in this particular mesocycle, was that back when I was training to failure, I'd have to have a nap before every session. And I spoke about this with James on the podcast as well. As I drove to the gym, I would have to really mentally get myself in the zone to know that, look, I'm pushing myself to failure, I'm having to progress on these movements. Whereas this particular mesocycle was really enjoyable because the start of the week, where we were training at sort of a 4 or 3 reps in reserve, I didn't feel the need to have a nap, because I knew that particular training session, that particular week of training would require not such a psychological sort of large amount of psychological zoning in and really amping and psyching myself up for that. My wires crossed then. Psyching myself up for that particular session. And it's only this week where I've been training, and last week in terms of like a 1 RIR and train to failure, where I've now gone, right, I'm training to failure this week, get myself in the zone, prioritise what's needed, optimise supplementation, sleep, for example. And what's nice about reps in reserve is that those weeks at the start, you're almost mentally preparing yourself for that 4 weeks out, that 3 weeks out. It's got, right, next week we're doing a 3 RR. The following week we have to mentally get in the zone, we're doing a 2 and a 1, and now we're going to failure. So to be completely honest with you, and a couple of people have commented as well in the past that taking parts from each area and implementing that style and that ability to manage fatigue. You know, if you're not feeling particularly hot one week and you want to dip that down, and we can look at the research where we can still gain hypertrophy from that 5 RR up into that failure, then it's a good way to manage that, you know. So I'm not gonna sort of sit here and say I'm in favour of training to failure only, or I'm in favour of training reps in reserve. I'm quite open to the idea that both are, if not as good as each other. I'm sure many will disagree, but I think what you're seeing a lot of now is, especially now trained by JP, Jordan Peets, for example, has implemented that reps in reserve. A lot of people that followed him that were adamant and had that almost alpha mentality that we must train to failure. Reps in reserve is just pussy. Why would you leave reps in the tank? They're now understanding, oh, maybe if we can manage fatigue in a better way by not training to failure and accumulating volume through that way, and then creeping up to a final week where we do train to failure, implement a deload, and we can go again and increase numbers from there. Maybe that's like a plausible training type. But I've got a few more sessions left before we fly away. I've emailed Callum, so very much looking forward to getting back on board with him, and it'll be interesting to see what Callum says as well. You know, I'm very much enjoying this upper lower split. 4 sessions per week is giving me a fantastic amount of time to rest, to mitigate any fatigue, to mentally switch on. you know, the Saturday and Sunday where I can have as 2 days completely off and to rest, I really enjoy. And by that Sunday, almost I'm clucking to get back in that gym. Whereas before, when I was training to failure and my frequency was like 2 on, 1 off, sometimes on my rest days, I'd be like, oh shit, I don't feel recovered. I still feel fatigued and I've got to go back in tomorrow and train to failure. So there you go. Take what you want from that. It'd be very interesting to hear your thoughts as well. I like to take on board different aspects and areas from other people's thoughts on it. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the video. Oh, fucking hell. Oh my god. Oh my god. It's a good one. It's a good one. Olympia recap with TM Cycles. Now before I start, call me Mystic Mac. Is that gonna focus? See that there? C-Bum first, Brion second, third Peterson, in brackets, really dislike his physique, too much mass in my opinion. Keon, future Mr. O, unbelievable physique, and then Branch Chen, huge underdog, fantastic. Branch Chen looked unbelievable. But the main man, Chris, got emotional, must admit. It was all worth the 4.5 hour, 50% sleep quality sleep. I woke up every hour, on the hour, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, saw Peterson on stage, ran up, watched C-Bum take it. Very upset, emotional. Really connected with him on an emotional level this season. All of last year with his renal problems. This little YouTube mini-series that he did with his videographer leading up to the Olympia to get a real insight into him was just... I love him. I actually love him so much. And one day... I just love Melissa and Ian. I love his whole family. I hope one day I could get to meet him and tell him that in like in the least creepy way. Very happy. Controversy though, because Cormier did a post saying this is fucking bullshit, which is like the highest level of unprofessionalism, saltiness. But Tom, you said you should have taken loads of drugs when Brandon beat you. Yeah, but like, look at me, I'm satirical, not deadly serious here. Chris Cormier just went on one, and then there was beef between him and Ian, which is just completely ridiculous. Humble in, I hope Brion has a word. Humble in victory or defeat. But I think we can all admit from the back, Chris is lacking that little bit of detail and density compared to someone like Brion. But if we are judging classic for classic, fucking hell, Chris Bumstead is the pinnacle of classic physique, classic lines, and he deserved it. And if you look at the scorecards last year, I believe, when Chris was probably at his worst, I think there's only a few points in it between him and Brion. And now arguably, Chris has made some improvements this season, condition probably not as sharp as previous years, but I very much think he deserved that win. That's the Olympia recap with Team Cycle. I'm not really bothered about the Open. I think the Open bodybuilders 8-10 years ago wouldn't even have a top 5, to be honest. Don't really like watching the Open. And I'm going to crack on with some work. Yo, it's the Hyperman set, AJ Tracy live and direct. It's Monday, we've got a very busy 10 days to be honest with you, because on Friday evening I fly to Glasgow for the Scottish Expo, I fly back on Sunday. Monday's TMC season number 1, the second drop, so I've got to ship them out, and then I'm driving, so 2 seconds. And then on Wednesday evening we fly to Ibiza, so the only reasonable time I can get a DEXA scan is this Friday. That's the closest point to where obviously the cut will end. which will put me on like, I think 7 weeks for the entire cut, or 7 in a few days, which is cool, that's fine. We can see the progress and results made from obviously going from my gaining phase into this cutting phase, and see if we've managed to pull off fat and retain any muscle. And then in terms of food this week, because it's the last week, 150 grams of carbs on a training day, so I pull in 50 grams off, and then my rest days, which will just be Wednesday this week, is obviously 100 grams of carbs. Cardio every day, bump that up to like 300 on the stepper, just because it's like the last few days. See if we can pull off as much fat as possible. Peaky catch up, I know. Top Boy is taking top priority at the moment. Fantastic season, this season of Top Boy. I think us Southerners appreciate it more than those up the north. Sort of southeast, south kind of. I mean, I'm sure you'll enjoy it, but it's for us Southerners really. Pre and intra workout time, final week in the meso. Sounds like the start of a rap song, that, doesn't it? Final week in the meso. Very much enjoying this Bring the Chaos. The Sour Gummy Bear, although it's not as good as the Total War, is very pleasant to sip on before training, and Alpha EAA, particularly enjoying the influence of the cognitive enhancement ingredients coming in towards the latter stage of the session, where you get that little dip. The Alpha GPC and the Huperzine in there are fantastic, so very much like how they've added that in. Like I said, final week in the meso this week, so pretty much training to failure on all exercises and the most of my sets. Training with Celso tomorrow. We've got an upper at Crayford, going back there, and the way that it's planned out, because we've got the Scottish Expo on Saturday, I think I'm doing pull with Josh, so I'm doing like lower today, upper rest, legs, push, pull, then Sunday off, and then back for a couple of sessions before we go away. Fantastic first session of the week wrapped up. Those that have been following me on Instagram, when Elle was away, I was experimenting with a variety of different chocolates to accompany my oats in the evening. So quite restrictive throughout the day, and my one treat is my chocolate oats. The top tier is in a league of its own. What I managed to create is a banoffee caramel pie with my oats. Hotel Chocolate do these pack of 6. My mouth's watering now. Pack of 6 caramelized banana, they're called. I'm gonna go get them now. I highly recommend you do so. Hey, gone for 3. Gone for the 3 for 10. If you go to Hotel Chocolate, it's usually 3 for 10. The caramelized banana, that's the gold standard of them all. One of my favourite cakes is carrot cake, so I thought I'd try this. They're also a chocolate silver winner 2015. They won it 4 years ago. Why haven't they won it in 2016, 17, 18 or 19? But we'll go with it. I respect it. And then coffee and white. Arabica coffee makes the creamiest white. Always been a fan of sort of like tiramisu. I'm a big fan of tiramisu. So I'll give you a taste test of the carrot cake tonight. Got a new book. Jordan Peterson was getting a tad, do you know what I mean? So I need to dedicate some time to finishing that. But I've got Everything is Fuck by Mark Manson, the author of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I would highly recommend you read that. Seems okay. Post-workout is on the go now, and then me and Elle are off to go and see, not a baby, a dog. We're getting a little Frenchie, a blonde Frenchie, and his name will be Pablo Siklos. So we rang a few places, gonna go and view a few dogs, and hopefully we get one. Yo, so yesterday I said that I would review the carrot cakes, chocolates with my oats before or after dinner. It was so abysmal that it angered me that I'd wasted calories on something that I didn't want to consume. So I didn't film anything. This morning I will taste test the Arabica coffee and white chocolates in my oats. Review coming right up. Chocolatey, mockletey goodness. There's the white chocolate. Hey, stick around. I'll go for another mouthful. It's up there. Nothing is yet to trump, Donald, the caramelised banana, that is, but this is good. 8 out of 10. Right, just got back from Selfridges, all done. The Ibiza 4.0 clothes haul will be out hopefully next week before I leave. It's not a bad one this time round. Not as I mean, we were only going out on the Thursday to music on Friday's Double Bubble, Ants. No, Saturday's Double Bubble, Ants and Elro, and then Sunday Solomon. So the other days we're just chilling and eating. But I'll still take you through it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. I think it's the penultimate one. We'll try and squeeze one more episode of the Ibiza Cut out. We'll do like a full day of eating, then a clothes haul, and then that'll be it. Thank you for watching. I'll see you very, very soon. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, good night. Much love. It's not quite coat season yet. I was very hot today in London.